Welcome to the Digital Competency Profiler overview that will be used for the microcredential in dementia care that we are actually putting together. The Digital Competency Profiler will be used as a means of determining which of the microcredentials you would want to complete so that you can upgrade your particular skills in those areas. The Digital Competency Profiler, as I noted earlier, is a system that is designed to ask you questions about your use of digital technology and use. And it's designed around not only your professional use of digital technology, but also for your personal use. And it has the 4 areas that you're actually seeing on the screen at this point in time. Those 4 areas are put together in a model called the General Technology Competency and Use Framework. And there are 4 orders of competence then. The first one is technical. That is, how do you actually make use of the devices themselves? How do you turn them on? How do you manipulate them? How do you input information into them? How do you get information out? How do you actually get the processing to actually work, etc.? So that's working with laptops and or tablets and or phones, smartphones, etc. So the digital technology side of things. So that's the technical. That's the use of the actual machine itself. The social is using the machine to interact with other people. So it's communication, but it also entails what are you going to do with the information that has been shared with you by other individuals, what kinds of security, and how do you value that kind of information. So there's an ethical kind of consideration to the social skills that you actually are making use of. These will overlap with some of the other skills that you're going to be seeing in another model, another video shortly. Thirdly, we have the informational order. So these are skills that deal with finding, sorting, aggregating, so bringing all kinds of information together in particular locations. Some applications like Facebook, for instance, is a good example of an aggregator. So who actually puts information onto your workspace that you see in the middle of Facebook, and it's going to be the people that you are following, or using Facebook terminology, your friends. It's also about how do you create digital technology, or in this particular case, digital knowledge artifacts. So that's the informational. It's the use or the finding of the information, the consumption of information, but it's also the creation of information. So it's a two-way street, which is why the two-headed arrows. And finally, it's identified as epistemological, but we can use this order as the computational order as well. So basically, the idea is taking information from a particular source, putting it into a computer program of some kind or other, getting the program to do what it's designed to do. So for instance, in a spreadsheet, you could actually make a number of formulas to do calculations on the data, the information that you have actually put into the spreadsheet itself. And then what do you do with that information once it has been processed by the computer? So the epistemological, by the way, even if you don't think that you're a programmer, today many different kinds of functions work in this particular area. So in other words, setting a digital thermostat is to a certain extent programming of that particular device that will determine how hot the room before your home, etc. So that's a kind of a programming. Putting together calendars is again programming so that you can be in the same place as other people. Making use of GPS, determining, so Google Maps or Apple Maps, being able to actually put in where do you want to go, and then having it give you the kind of information. Low-level programming for sure, but it is still programming of a nature. And then there's various devices, the Internet of Things, that allow you to do other kinds of programming as well. So our 4 orders of competence then: the technical, the social, the informational, and the epistemological, or the computational, if you prefer. We have taken those and put them into a survey. So the survey is referred to as the Digital Competency Profiler, and you will see these kinds of results showing up, and I'll just go through that very briefly. So if you go into the GREX dashboard, if you need assistance in terms of remembering the Global Readiness Explorer, please see the previous video that describes that particular piece. Once you're inside the GREX, the Global Readiness Explorer, you can click on the DCP and it will show up in this kind of format. So there is an activity at the top. So this red star indicates that this is the activity that you are responding to. So you'll be asked 3 questions in the DCP. When I'm managing any of my accounts, so email, bank, phone, video chat service, TV, movie service, etc., how often do I do that? So you select the drop-down menu here, and you can say never, a few times a year, a few times a month, a few times a week, or daily. And I'm just going to choose daily. So you would respond to that particular idea: manage any of my accounts, email, bank, phone, video chat, service, etc., with your frequency. You can also give a response to confidence of use. Do not know how to use, not confident, I require assistance to use. I'm confident I can solve some problems, fairly confident, can use with no assistance, very confident. And so if you don't know how to manage your accounts, your email account or your bank, etc., you might put down do not know how to use. Keep in mind that this is going to give you feedback about the levels of skill and competence that are required in some instances to work with the digital tools. And then the third question that we've added in, because it seems that some cases, some functions, some activities, like these kinds of pieces that we've got at the top here, are performed on certain kinds of devices, but not others. So we're asking you, which device, one device only, do you use the most often to do this management of accounts, etc.? And so you would respond with whatever it is that you use. If you only have a desktop or a laptop, then it's a computer choice. If you have other devices like a smartphone or a tablet, you might choose that mobile device, or a smart TV, gaming console, wearables, etc. Those kinds of pieces fit in that third category. Once you're finished with each one of those choices for those 3 questions, you go on to the next activity. And this activity is, in this particular case, to create or edit electronic documents such as word processing documents or presentations or spreadsheets, and you would go through the same choices again. So what the survey is doing is going to be accumulating all of this information, and it is then going to give you a compilation of what this means when you actually get to the end of the actual survey itself. So I'm going to show you what that could look like by going to this particular function, and you will get a graph of this kind. So it's called an Astor plot, and basically what it does is give you, according to the key down here, so you can actually see the colors that stand for each of the 4 orders. So the technical competence is the green one. So what does a 2 actually mean? Well, it's a measure of your competence index, that is, how frequently, how often do you use it, and with what kind of confidence do you use it. And it's on a scale of 1 to 10. So if you take a look at the entire circle, if the green goes all the way out to the outside edge, it's giving you that kind of a measure of 2. You will also see over to the right-hand side that the measure of 2 is indicated by an orange line. That orange line that's labeled A is your particular response. In this particular case, it's my response. That's the name, the email address that I've used to access this. It will give you an indication of where you are compared to all of the other people in your group who have finished. This is a larger group. It's got 203 people who have actually responded to these surveys inside this group. You will not be using this particular group, but you'll see your own. So you can actually take a look at where your skills are compared to everybody else. Nobody else can actually see these because they are specific to you. And so we'll have them for the technical, for the social, for the informational, and the computational as well. So those 4 different areas are broken out. So basically, you're getting further information about your responses here. And if you scroll down, you will also see that there is additional information that you can actually glean from each one of those orders. So we saw that there was a score of 2 in this particular area for the technical. So if we go to the technical area here, in white, it's giving you an interpretation of what that 2 means. And it says, in this particular case, keep at it. Your responses suggest that you could be at a tipping point where you should soon start finding huge gains in efficiency and effectiveness in the use of digital technologies. So in other words, keep going. You're moving in a fruitful direction. In yellow underneath for each of the orders, you'll actually see a suggestion what you can do to actually improve your scores in that particular order. In this case, it suggests that since you already use technology a little time invested to make better understanding of the devices and the software, and it'll help you tremendously in reducing frustrations that you may feel when faced with new technologies. So in other words, use the materials or the digital technologies more is what is being suggested. So every time you go into the DCP, you will get a new version of this, and it'll be saved in the submission section of the Grex, as I showed you earlier. It'll give you a way of charting your responses over time. You will also have the opportunity in your micro-credentials to actually save all of this information, and you can do that by doing a right click. So this is a Windows machine, so you do a right click on the screen and go down to print. And in this particular case, instead of sending the file to a printer, we're going to print it to a file. In other words, we're going to create a portable document format, a PDF, for this particular piece, and we do that by clicking on print. You will have an opportunity to tell us where you want it. So this is going to be the DCP version 1. Don't worry about the date because the date will be added automatically by your computer. And I'm going to be putting it on the desktop so I know exactly where it is. And when I click save, it'll go there. And so instead of looking at the submission, so now I can close this. And if I wanted to go back to it, all I'd need to do is open that file one more time. So let me just go to that particular location. Here is the download piece that I'm using. And so I'm looking for the DCP file that I just created on the, sorry, not the downloads, on the desktop. That's where the problem was. So there's DCP version 1. And if I double click on it, it'll open an application called Adobe Reader, Adobe Acrobat Reader, and you can actually see the file here. So there's the Aster plot that we were just looking at. It looks a little bit different because this is in a different program now, a different application, but it's got all the same information. So there's the Aster plot, the round circle that we were just looking at. There are the comparison graphs where you can compare your responses to everybody else's for each of the 4 orders. And you'll also be able to see those responses that we were taking a look at, the feedback that you're looking at. So in the white, again, above the yellow line, you'll be seeing all of this information about the interpretation. And then below the yellow line, you'll see the suggestion as to what to do. And you'll see that for each of the 4 orders, so the technical, the social, the informational, and the epistemological. And then you can actually take that file. I'm just going to close it here a second. But the file is still sitting here on my desktop, and I can now save it to my portfolio as evidence of the work that I've been doing. So hopefully that's helpful in terms of how you're going to make sense of the feedback, etc. And if you need further assistance, we will provide that in MediaWiki. So this brings us to the end of the overview of the DCP.